In the George Zimmerman case, we now have all these different tapes from his jailhouse calls. And we've seen that it has gotten him into some trouble because they used clownish code words with his wife to move money around. They thought they were being clever, like, oh, take 75 cents out of the bank account. You fool. Everybody knows that's a code word. It's not actually 75 cents. Anyway, he's apparently using code words to describe a benefactor that apparently, according to him, offered to pay his legal defense fund. Who is it? Sean Hannity. Now, that's a story that globalgrind.com broke. We're going to talk to them in a second. But now remember, Zimmerman's original attorneys, when they were quitting the case, they said this.
We learned that he had called Sean Hannity of Fox News directly, not through us, and we believe, I can't confirm this, we believe that he spoke directly with Sean off the record, and he's not even willing to tell us what our client told him.
That's interesting. And then Sean Hannity actually went on air and talked about his private conversations with George Zimmerman as well.
For a few weeks, we have been pursuing an interview with Mr. Zimmerman to give him a chance to tell his side of the story. Now, yesterday, I was contacted by an individual that we, in fact, believe was George Zimmerman. He reached out to me. We spoke on the phone about his case, and I agreed not to report on the contents of that conversation. That's it. I know nothing about his relationship with his now former attorney.
Now, we'll see if that's it. We want to bring on the editor of globalgrind.com, Michael Skolnick, who broke this story. Michael, first of all, welcome, of course. And tell me, you know, as you were listening to the tapes, what did you hear and how did you get to this conclusion?
Well, Cenk, I spent all night last night listening to, over 149 tapes that the prosecution released yesterday. And there's one phone call, number 30, that just rubbed me the wrong way when George is talking to it. We think it's his brother-in-law, who he calls Scott, about this guy who's willing to pay for his legal defense if only he uses this certain attorney who he calls JB, and the guy who he's talking about he calls SH, and they're constantly talking in all this code. And I woke up this morning and I was thinking, who the heck is SH? And I looked at the dates, looked at the conversation that the attorneys had at the press conference and then Hannity's response that evening, and I thought, it's Sean Hannity. And if you listen to this tape, the first part of the tape Zimmerman has with his buddy, you'll hear him talking about setting up, this guy who's going to pay for his legal defense if only JB, who we now know is Jose Baez, who is Casey Anthony's attorney. So check out this clip for a minute.
He said that, whoever is, whether it's him personally or some party that he's affiliated with that's willing to support my defense, they should be willing to support my defense, whether I use JP or not. Mm-hmm. Unless they have some vested interest in using him.
So you mean the support coming from SH, and is that what you're thinking?
SH?
S and Sam?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Gotcha.
Now, Michael, obviously, your guess as to it being Sean Hannity is not just based on the initials, although they're not being very clever by using the initials. So tell me what it's based on.
So of course, I thought SH, could be Sean Hannity, but I wasn't sure if that was him. I continue to do research. Now, remember, Jose Baez, again, another phone calls that I was listening to last night, has been calling George Zimmerman continuously before he gets arrested, asking him to take on this case. So we know, and we've confirmed with 3 different sources that JB is actually Jose Baez. We know Jose Baez is trying to get on this case. So Zimmerman goes on to talk to his buddy and says, you should email SH, and his email address is his last name at a certain domain. Now, we figured out what that domain was because he was talking code, and we figured out what the code was. And this morning, I called an absolute rock-solid source. I would say I was asking, someone who was as close to you as possible if Mr. Hannity's email address is his last name at this domain. And he said, absolutely it is. And there it was. It's Sean Hannity.
Oh, wow. So
So if you listen to this tape, Cenk, you'll see here them talking about this email address.
All right, let's listen to that.
Well, and the other one you were asking me about is last name at the same domain.
The SH?
Yeah. It's just the last name and then the same domain that I just gave you.
Really?
Yeah.
You've had contact with them?
No.
That way?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Should I reach out to him or no?
Run it by O'Mara first.
Gotcha.
Because he's going to anyway.
We still have to, he still needs to be at arm's length.
Yeah, I agree.
So, Michael, they put out a statement today, Fox News did. Sean Hannity has never offered to pay any legal fees or any fee associated with George Zimmerman. And if Fox News says it, it must be true. But in this case, is it also possible that Zimmerman misunderstood what Hannity was saying or extrapolated when he shouldn't have, etc.?
Look, Sean has every right to offer to pay for George's legal defense fund if that's what he wants to do. There's nothing, that's his decision. However, I do think it's important to know, who is supporting Mr. Zimmerman. I mean, he has received over $300,000 in contributions and donations, and we've seen now with these phone calls, and of course with him being brought back to prison or to jail because he lied to his wife, perjured herself in court. This team and this family is just, if you listen to these phone calls, I mean, everything is in code and everything is moving money and shaking money and talking about where to put the money. So I think it's important as a general public to understand who is behind Zimmerman and who is supporting him.
Yeah, I didn't think this case would have an amusing turn, but the codes actually amuse me. I mean, they are so amateurish and clownish. Now, having said that, let's talk about Sean Hannity for a second. Now, if we believe George Zimmerman, that this S.H. Sean, the person we think is Sean Hannity, based on your research, was going to fund his defense, why? What is it about Zimmerman that would, obviously we're guessing here, but would motivate Hannity to want to put up so much money in his defense?
Well, let's not forget that Mr. Robert Zimmerman, George Zimmerman's father, the first interview he gave was to Sean Hannity. He actually was silhouetted for his own protection. And yesterday, we also broke a story that CBS News had sent flowers to George Zimmerman's parents saying, we know you're going through a hard time. If, we're here to talk to you if you need someone to talk to. So, of course, everybody is still fighting for that first interview with George Zimmerman. Paying for a legal defense fee would probably be cheap if they could, get that interview with George.
See, that's really interesting, too. And it might be more interesting than if simply Sean Hannity thought, oh, poor George Zimmerman, he's the victim here, and I want to help him out. And I think to some degree the worldview of conservatives is it's always the white guys that are getting picked on, the Christian guys that are getting picked on. They don't realize that they're the great majority in this country. They always view them as victims. But it's actually more interesting if it turns out it's to get access, and that's how this game is played. And maybe Hannity didn't even really intend to give the money, but wanted to hint at it so that he can get the interview with Zimmerman if need be.
Look, I mean, it was also reported this past week when more documents came out that ABC News and other outlets had paid for travel for certain people in George Zimmerman's camp to try to secure that interview. So I'm not saying that Mr. Hannity, this is what was his intent, but it very well could have been his intent. And I can understand why. George Zimmerman's interview, in his first interview, is big ratings for television, will be watched by many millions of people in this country. And if Sean Hannity can secure that for Fox News, it's a good deal.
It's an interesting insight into how that game might be played. So either way, Michael Skolnick, really interesting research at globalgrind.com about this. Thank you for being on the case. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Now, when we come back, well, the Republicans used to claim that they're in favor of disclosure of where the money's coming from. I hope you're sitting down. It turns out they're no longer in favor of it.
17 angry old white men will wake up and realize they just bought the country.
And apparently the Republicans will be ecstatic about that. We'll tell you how they're backing those 17 old white men when we come back. And also, the money honey, Maria Bartiromo, of course, defending the establishment to the hilt. I want to talk about the reasoning behind that, which I think is the real story behind the story, also later in the program.
You can't say fraudulent because there's no indictment. You can't just throw around the word fraud.
Here's the federal judge's opinion that says he was a conspirator.